what we're going to do is, well, first of all, Diane says, we were trying to figure out what to do for a program, and Diane says, bring glass and tell stories. So that's kind of what we're going to do, but anybody knows me is I love numbers in Cambridge, and a lot of you don't care about numbers. I know there's somebody in the back that doesn't care. Where is she anyway? I don't see her. Where is she, Freeman? No, that's okay. You don't have to go there. But Cambridge was just so anal about numbers, and they did so many crazy things, and I love it. So we're going to talk just a little bit about that. But what I want to do is I'm going to go through this sheet just kind of briefly to give you a real good idea of what there is in Elaine, how extensive it was. And then we're going to go through and talk about some glass pieces. And anytime you have questions, ask them. We won't wait till the end for any question. And if you have questions in the middle of something, by all means ask it while you're still thinking about it. The first thing on stemware, we did the window out on the stemware, so we're not going to talk too much about that. But I do want to say that, well, let me phrase it this way. If there's an etch that you want to learn about Cambridge, it's Elaine. They put Elaine on more things than you can imagine, than anything else. Stemware lines, we have 12 full stemware lines, and you can see that there's selected items on 3 additional ones. 7801, or even as 3 older numbers included though. So there's just a bunch of different stemwares. I think the next highest one was maybe 10, I think. Larry, you did the article at one. Was 12 or 13. So Elaine came out in 1933, early 33. You know, when you look at it compared to where the other etches were, Diane was in 32, Portia, or 31, Portia 32, Rose Point 34, Wildflower 35, Chantilly 36. It was kind of right in that time period. And there was a lot of things happening coming out at Cambridge. So it came out at a really cool time because there are just a lot of lines and stuff we're going to talk about that came out at the same time. And Cambridge seemed to want to feature Elaine. It really wanted to become a feature etch, so they just put it on everything. So as far as the stemware goes, we're not going to talk about too much, but want to talk about a couple of pieces just because I got a story attached, so that's good enough. But this is an experimental piece, and one time on eBay, this piece came up, and I was looking at it, and of course it's a 3500 stem, and but then I got to looking at the bowl, and it's just a really funky looking bowl because it didn't look like the 3500 bowl at all. So of course I contacted the seller, and I asked her, you know, how many ounces is it, and what's the size and everything, and she came back and she says it's 7 ounces to the rim. Well, I knew right then and there that something was goofy because in the 3500 stemware line, it goes from a 4.5 ounce claret to, I think it's a 9 ounce is the goblet, 9 or 10. I think it's a 9 ounce. So there's nothing in between. So I said, bring them on, and I got the set, and then we got it, and looking at them here, it's a 3600 bowl on. This bowl is from the 3600 line stuck on a 3500 stem. And if you go in the museum, we actually donated one to the museum, but they did the similar thing with Rose Point, only they did this bowl on a 3121 stem and etched at Rose Point. So you can see both those. Hey, somebody was just playing around one day and did some crazy things. And so it's just funny that every once in a while, if you're paying attention, you find some weird things. So, okay, so are there any questions on stemware again? Because and you may have, because if you've seen what's out there and the major lines on stemware, you can see probably the most prevalent were 3500 line, 3121, and Tally-Ho. They're probably the 3 largest of the stemware lines. They did also, obviously, the 3035 and some other ones completely, but the ones you find the most often are 3500, 3121, and Tally-Ho. Okay, any questions on stemware? And we'll move on. Okay, So I guess being featured as an etch as they wanted it to be, they came up with their own label. And if you saw this piece, but this actually has an Elaine label in it. You do not find these very often. And I don't know how long, Dave, do you know how long they use that label for? It's hard to say. They quit doing labels in, 35 of any kind, I think, right? It was the signing that they continued or quit. So who knows? Anyway, it's a kind of a cool label. It's a blue, it's a white on blue, and that's the one that's reproduced on your printout there. So having its own label like that, you know they were, pretty serious about featuring it on things. And so when it was introduced in early 33, Tally-Ho had just come out in late 32. So really the predominant line before Tally-Ho was 3400. So they put Elaine on every 3400 piece. It's by far the largest number of pieces on that. And they did some pretty neat things in the 3400 line, and we'll go through and look at some of this. Of course, the 3400 4-bowl, which is probably the most prevalent blank I think Cambridge ever did anything. When you find this etched with everything cut, but what makes this one special is in peach blow. And also, I get a kick out of what they did with different blanks. Like this bowl, I think it came out of the mold with the sides going straight up and down, and then the worker would tool it in many different fashions, and I think there's like 6 or 7 different bowls. They're all made out of the same blank. I mean, one day the worker came in and maybe he had a little twitch in his arm, and we flared it this way. Let's give it another number, to something different. But they would do it, flatten the sides out. They'd crimp it and do all kinds of different things with it. Another 3400 bowl that we just think is really interesting is this. They call it the 10-inch baker. I don't know where the name baker. It's not like you're going to stick this in the oven or anything. But it's an unusual bowl. You don't see this very often. It is signed. I don't think the pink one was. Yeah, no, the pink one was signed. This is signed as well. But we just think this is kind of an unusual bowl. You don't see this very often. I think every once in a while you see it in maybe apple blossom, and there's something else too that I see it every so often in. They did not do Elaine very much in color, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go along. We have some color pieces, and we tried to bring one of every color that it's available in. We'll talk a little bit about that. But so again, there's 3400 line to the major line. That was the first one. And of course, Tally-Ho was introduced a few months before Elaine was introduced in late 32. So they put Elaine on everything Tally-Ho. The 500 line, which is the Gadroon line, with these kind of bowls and things, that was introduced in late 33. So they and that was just a hugely extensive line, a bunch of stuff. And they put Elaine on all the 3500 stuff. So just those 3 lines alone is an enormous amount of different things that they put the etch on. And then there's all the different vases and different things. They had selected items in the 3600 Martha line, the Pristine line, the Round line, and the Virginia line. In the Martha line, primarily it's candlesticks, and I don't think we brought one. Let's see. Pristine line, Pristine bowl. You see this, I think you see rose point on these things more than you do Elaine. You don't find Elaine much on the Pristine at all. And then, of course, the 3500 came out. And then there's a kind of a big chunk, the next major line that they really introduced and it was towards the end, was the 3900 line. It's a very small line. The first time that it shows up is in the 1949 catalog, but they were actually producing it much earlier than that. The mold records show that Cambridge was ordering the molds for the 3900 line back in 1943. I'm not sure when it was actually introduced, but it was some time after that. It's a very limited, there's not very many pieces in the line. I brought this piece because earlier I had said that, Cambridge was just so anal about numbers, and like you say, they twitch a little bit, and we'll give that another number and call it a fruit basket or something different like that. Well, I remember when we first got this piece, and it's a little relish. It's got a divider in it. And then, I don't know, a year or so later, we got the same piece, but the divider was going lengthwise. I'm going, what the heck is that? And I look in, okay, what number is that? Of course, they had to give it a different number. No. For whatever reason, it's got the same number. So why, Cambridge is so anal sometimes, and then they'll do goofy things like that. I don't know. So, also in the 3900 line, little 2.5 ounce barrel tumbler. It's also, you find it in the large size too as well. It's the 12 ounce, a little bigger. Okay. Any questions so far? Did you say? Okay. You want to tell your candlestick story?
I don't know what.
Well, actually, well, before you get to that, then I got a lead in for that since she's back here. And it's nice. Every so often, your friends give you a call from somewhere, wherever they're at in the country, if they go to a glass show and, they find a piece in Elaine, they'll call you up and say, hey, do you have this? And one of our friends that's here in the audience, no names, please, said, Jack, you need Elaine dinner plates. I'm going, okay, yeah, what nine? What nine? Was it 3,400 dinner plates? 1402 dinner plates, tally-ho? Were they 3,900 dinner plates? And she goes, I don't know, just dinner plates. And that brings me, because notice I didn't say 3,500. That 3,500 was a hugely extensive line. And they had bread and butter plates, salad plate, dessert plate, charger plates, cake plates, no dinner plate. What happened? Somebody fell asleep at the wheel at the company. I don't know what it is, because there is no 3,500 dinner plate. And there's a gap of numbers, like 3,500 / I think it's either 7, 8, and 9 that are missing, that there's nothing attributed to it. So one of those could have been slotted for the dinner plate. But, here you're going to sit down at a nice table setting with all the, the side pieces, and you got all things, but you can't eat the main course because you got no dinner plate. Well, I don't know why that is, but anyway. So okay, so we're going back to the candlestick. What were they? 3,900, then that's what they were.
I don't know numbers.
Yeah. One of the cool things that I think is really neat designs that Cambridge did, and it was used extensively on a 3,500 line, was the ram's head. They used it on the candlesticks. They used it on bowls, on the candy dish. And the ram's head on this particular piece, and this is a later version. What I should talk about, really, the original version of this candlestick, instead of having this cornucopia in the middle, had actual ram's head itself. Okay, and that was the center. That was the original one. They didn't make that for very long. They came out with a second version, which is this one. And this happens to be the candelabra, but this has the cornucopia in the middle, and this happens to have a gold-encrusted Elaine Beaublanchet. There's another story. I don't know if you were around, a number of years ago. We actually wrote an article about this because we had purchased a bunch of Elaine stuff, gold-encrusted stemware, but really what we wanted it for was it had a pair of these candelabras with gold-encrusted Elaine Beaublanchets. They were mint condition, and Unfortunately, only one came intact. They didn't even wrap anything in just a few pieces of paper and some cardboard dividers. And it's when you bring the box up to the porch and it's tinkle, 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 and it's like, oh, no. So anyway, so this was the second version. Okay, take it away.
So this is the third version, I guess. And the difference on this, it's been cut on the arms here. So they're notches. So we got this candlestick. We were at a friend's house over by St. Louis. And they had said, oh, come down in the basement and we'll rummage around and see if we can find anything you're interested in. So we found this candlestick, but they only had one. And one of us doesn't mind getting one candlestick. No. And one of us wants to get only pairs. So we got the one candlestick there. So the next day, we were headed west to, I think we were going to see the Finleys, and they had told us a couple of places to stop along the way. So we pulled into the Apple wagon or Apple something, I think. And we always go our separate ways. So I went left, he went right. And I went up to this case and I said, well, there's that looks like that blank. I said, wouldn't it be something if it had Elaine on it? It was up really high. And there was its mate. We found the next day. So.
Well, you aren't done with the story yet. She I guess I have to finish it.
Oh.
She comes running over to me and said, I think, tells me that she found it, but she didn't have it in her hand. And I'm going, you left it there? There was nobody else in the place, at all. There was nobody else within miles. And I was worried, though, because.
But we got it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about colors. They did not do Elaine very much in color. And it's really interesting the colors that they did do it in, as well as the colors that they didn't do it in. I've kind of put these in an order where it says known colors and kind of the order that they are most often found in. So amber is the most common color found in Elaine, and that's not common, but that is the most frequently found color. And it's generally found in, like here's a bowl in the 3500 line. The only stemware, other than those oddball things, which we'll talk about here shortly, the only colored stemware is tally-ho, and that's known, and that comes in amber. The second, and there's amber in 3400 as well. The second most common is peach blow, as was that 3400 bowl. And I think we have another one here. This was we bought this from eBay Australia many years ago. That was kind of just an oddball thing that came up. And this is gold stippled. And the next most common color is, well, everything after amber and peach blow is very difficult to find. That's it. Amethyst, we have a very few pieces in amethyst. We happen to like this bowl. It would really be interesting. We would love for this to have been gold encrusted. It's on the dark colors. It's really hard for the etch to be seen. It just doesn't pop out. In the museum, there is in the amethyst section, there is an Elaine vase. It's a bud vase, I think, the 274, and it is gold encrusted, and you can really see the difference of what that looks like. And then there is forest green. And here we have the 3500 covered candy. We actually have this also in amber, and I believe we have it willow blue. I think, yeah, we have it in willow blue as well. And then it comes, of course, in gold encrusted and crystal. So. And this one is signed. They quit signing pieces 1935, 6, something like that. somewhere in there. So if Elaine came out 30, there's only a couple of years in there where they did that on Elaine pieces, obviously. Okay. Willow blue. We have a pair of these in candlesticks. Decagon 646 base. That is willow blue. Oh, I want to check this now. Now, they told me this is heather bloom. Keyhole vase. This is the only known heather bloom Elaine piece that we have found. And now that I can tell the difference, you can see the purplish tint versus the willow. Lynn Welker tells a great story about this. Some years ago, we got this from him. And he was digging around in somebody's basement. We got lots of digging around in basement stories. It's like Richie in the dump. And he goes, I saw this, and it was dark and damp, and a whole box of stuff. He goes, I looked at it, and it looked like, it was like moonlight blue Diane or willow blue Diane. So I stuffed it in that box. I got it back. I pulled it out in the shop, and I go, oh, be doggone, it's Heather Bloom Elaine. So that's a heck of a twist. So, let's see. Okay, royal blue. We brought this one, and I'm gonna talk about these pieces. I'm gonna hold these up. Will you hold one? I hold one. Yeah, why not? They did royal blue on certain pieces. This one of. These two are part of a set that we have, and there were 7 of these. We have an amethyst one, a forest green one, an amber one, and then the royal blue and the carmine, and then we have 2 crystal that are frosted on the bowls too as well. Best that we can tell, yes? Yeah, pass those around. No, I don't think so. The best that we can tell, this was not production, that it was a special order. They came out of a wealthy estate a long, long time ago. But they did make royal blue in some things. There's this candlestick is known, the 646 single in Decagon is known in royal blue, and there are also a couple of other pieces as well. We don't know, this is the only one we know of in carmine. There may be some out there, we just have never seen any Elaine on carmine. So those are what we do know. And there's some interesting omissions. Pardon? Why do they look different? The question was why do these look different? Yes, some people call this a reverse etch. I don't know if there's really an actual term for what they are, but everything but the etch is frosted on the bowl. Okay, so normally, it's the other way around. In this case, and the inside of the bowl is not frosted, by the way, just the outside. So that's why they are different and unusual. So what colors do we not know? Well, if you've got willow blue and you got peach blow, where's light emerald? Never seen Elaine on light emerald. And if anybody does please come and see me afterwards. It's not on ebony. It's not on crown Tuscan. There's gold crystal, yes, as far as another light transparent. It's not on gold crystal. So why? Who knows? Because if it coming out in 33, it was ripe to be on a number of things like that. But again, they did so very little Elaine on color anyway. But why they chose the ones they did, I don't know. So, okay. As far as known decorations, you can see there what stemware we know of that was gold encrusted. Again, this is just what we know, and we're finding out more and more all the time. So tomorrow we could be adding to this list. But the Tally-Ho 100 line, the 3121, 3500, 7801, that's the 7966. Those are like the trumpet stems, is which ones those are. And those are known to be gold encrusted. And then the lines as far as what is gold encrusted. Gold stippled, if anybody you want to know the difference between gold encrusted and gold stippled. Okay. Gold encrusted is where the etch is all filled in with gold. And in some lines, that gold encrusting also means that the edge has a gold line on it. Okay, the tally-ho line is that way. The 3400 line, when it's gold encrusted, it has a plain, simple line around the edges too as well. The 3500 line, though, is a little different because the 3500 line's got people call a gadrooning or pie crust edge. So it's hard to get a nice, even, thin line around that edge. So what they did is they gold stippled that edge. So when a piece is also gold encrusted on a 3500 line, they also do a gold stippling. Now, instead of having a straight line, it's like they took a paintbrush, and if you afterwards you come up and you look at it, you see it's kind of brushed in, so it's got these little lines that go inside. By the way, this is, well, I got this piece up, and I think I've heard a couple of people mention it on some of the other etches, because I think Diane, they did it. On this relish, this is the 4-part relish, and also there's a 3-part relish where this one divider is not here. When they gold encrusted it, they did Elaine around the edge, and they did chintz in the bottom. And I think there's 3 or 4. Did they do wildflower that way too? I don't remember. There's 3 or 4 different ones where they did that. It's just kind of an unusual variation. They just did it on these 2 blanks that we know of in Elaine. So that's the gold encrusted and gold stippling. And this piece is just gold stippled. So it doesn't have the gold in the etch itself. It's just around the edge. And there are different pieces too as well that are just have the gold edge around it. But on the 3500 line, that's what the stippling is. Any questions on that? Or anybody got that? Okay. Okay, so you can see what it was available as far as, which lines and etc. We had a variation, so we wanted to bring this because we thought this was pretty cool, although not very practical. On this bowl, this was gold stippled, which is that kind of brushed in around the whole around the edge. It's got a line around here too as well. But they also brought gold decoration down the 2 diamonds, which is kind of unusual. We'd never seen that where they've actually brought the gold design on the interior. Not very practical too, because you use it, it's going to get worn off over time, and so far this is pretty good. So the other thing is on platinum, and they did do platinum on Elaine. The stemware, 3500 stemware is the only thing we've seen so far with platinum. And if you look on platinum on stemware, I've seen 3 different variations. On Elaine stemware, and there's one out there, they just had a solid line around the top of the rim. You also see, in fact, when you go to the show tomorrow, there's a booth that has, and I've seen this in a number of cases, where in addition to the solid line, they'll have a smaller, real thin line right underneath it. So that was the second variation. And the third one is they actually will gold stipple and have that brushed going all the way around. I've not seen that on Elaine. The only stuff I've seen on Elaine is just the one solid band. So, yeah, and so it's available on, they did it on 3500 stemware. They also did it on certain 3500 pieces. Yes? I'll repeat it. I'll repeat them. The question was, was Cambridge actually the one that did this on there? To the best of my knowledge, yes, they were. I don't know if anybody has any. That's what I'm led to believe, that they did that, yes. Platinum is kind of a weird treatment because you really can't see it on crystal. I mean, it just doesn't show up. If you had to come up and really look at it to really see that it's there, the only good thing about it is that it doesn't tarnish, so you don't have to polish it at all. but it's on certain select 3,500 pieces. We actually also have it on a covered urn, 3,500 covered urn. And I think we have it on another piece too. Okay, sterling silver. You know, everybody's familiar a lot with the sterling silver, kind of like Wallace that did Rose Point, and they did, I don't know if they did any on some of the other things, I'm sure they did. Elaine was not in that neighborhood. The most predominant sterling is by the Weidlich Sterling Company, and it's done on round line plates and bowls and mayo. So they just took, a round line was a very simple, plain design. I mean, the edge on this was just, if you look at the back, it was just a plate, it had just a, and that was why this fit so nicely on there, because it was just a very simple, plain, flat edge that they could just attach the silver rim to. The same thing on this mayo. Again, you had just a nice flat rim. It'd be tough to do try to put a silver rim on something that was a gadroon. You just wouldn't have a nice flat edge to do it on. So, and the pattern was T-rose. Weidlich Sterling Company was in business about the same time that Cambridge was. They were on the East Coast, basically from around early 1900, and I think they went out of business sometime in the 50s. Don't know much more about them, although, you know, when you go on some of the silver websites, you can see this pattern. That's how we identified it. And then a year or so ago, and I think, was it last year that they did the tally-ho program, or was maybe the year before. We found a tally-ho piece with this Burks and Mayer Sterling Company on it. It was a twin salad dressing bowl. And it was one of those, and those people are still in business. It was one of those that they're out of Canada, out of Ontario, and, you know, you try to call them or write to them, email them, and say, hey, do you have any information on this? This happened like back in 1933, and of course, you know, people weren't born then. They're like, oh, go away. We got better things to, and I harangued them, and finally I got somebody from the HR department of all places, got back with me and says, we really don't have any information on this. She probably didn't. So that was the end of that. It also comes in a number of filigree holders. Here we have a vase, and basically in the vase situation, what this was the 12-inch keyhole vase that they just lopped or didn't attach the foot to, and plopped it right in like that. A little more unusual one, right here, is this one, which is the 3,500 handled 3-part relish. And what's a little more unusual about this is that you have the base, and then it attaches with 3 little things that cup over it. But they also attach this little thing on the handle, so that's a little different, and it's kind of a unique thing, kind of a neat little thing they did. So, and you see it on some other things. In fact, I thought somebody had one that there's like a little soap dish that comes in with a filigree holder too. So you see that. So that's kind of a rundown on everything Elaine. Lynn once said when we first started collecting, and I remember we found something and we didn't know what it was, and it wasn't in the Elaine catalog, and I don't think we had a 3034 catalog yet, and here it was, and then we found it, and Lynn said that, and I always remember this, is that probably everything that you see in the 3034 catalog, you could probably find Elaine, etched Elaine, with the exception maybe of Decagon. I've never seen a piece on Decagon, but who knows? It may show up one day too. So, so it was just a very extensive line. Oh, we got some unusual. Yeah, 3,400 square bowl. That came in a couple of sizes in Elaine. Love to find a square plate maybe that it was supposedly available and offered on that. This piece is the lemon plate. You won't find this in the catalog at all. What it was, it shows up in that 1937 brochure that they talked about. There was a salesman's catalog with a bunch of brochures in it. And hold that up for a second. What this was if you recognize that, that's the lid to the 3400 candy box. And they also used the same thing for the 3400 covered butter. And they just kind of flattened it up with that nice little knob there and made it into a lemon plate. So, yeah, heck yeah, we'll talk about that. I like that. This was kind of a cool bowl. This bowl, 3-part bowl the tally ho comes in 2 sizes. This is a smaller one. There's a larger one. And I remember the first time we saw this, it had this jagged sawtooth edge. And I'm going, what's the story on that? And you notice that there's no room. The etch comes right up to the edge. The other version is not a sawtooth. So this size and the larger size comes both with the sawtooth edge and just the plain rimmed edge. And if you sit them side by side, the sawtooth is about a little bit shorter. So what happened is in the mold, from the regular one, they'd put like a little rim type of metal rim in there or whatever it was that had that sawtoothing in there. So it made the bowl a little shorter, but that's what gave it that kind of edge in it. Why they did that? Interesting. By the way, same number, plain rim or sawtooth rim. Tally ho. People ask a lot of times what's one of our favorite blanks. This is one of mine. It's just the tally ho celery. And I just like this because of the way they fit the etch on it with the diamonds and everything. I just thought it was a really cool piece. I got to mention this. Don't you remember article that we did last year on this, on the tally ho lid? David Ray and Elaine and I were at a show, Chicago? Yeah. And this was sitting on the shelf, and David goes, hey, look at that. Looking at this, and I go, yeah, okay, and of course, it was gold encrusted Elaine, and that was, it's beautiful. But then I got to looking at this thing, because if you look at it, normally you see this piece has a divider in it. It's 1402, I think it's a 95 or 96 as the footed one. Very pretty common piece. You see it in a lot of etches. Lane, it's very common. But this didn't have the divider in it. And not only that, it had a lid on it. And anything with a tally ho with a lid on it is difficult to find whether it's etched or not. In fact, we have another piece that's the cookie jar etched Elaine, and the best of our knowledge, those are the only 2 etched lids known in tally ho. You can find it in colors. They're still difficult to find. They're available in amber and royal blue, carmine. But so anyway, we didn't know what this was. There's nothing anywhere in the literature about it. It's not in the catalogs. With Dave Rankin's help, we were able to come up, although it's not 100% sure, but we actually have come up with a number for this. It's 1402-109. And this piece also came without a foot. And if it's without a foot and it has a lid, then it's the 1402-108. But again, we're 99% sure, but because we don't have a Cambridge thing that has a picture and the number, of course, we can't be 100% sure. But anyway, it's a really neat piece, and we're really pleased that we found that. This is just another cool. Oh, this is actually down here, 3900 line. Cambridge did a lot of things like that. They would take something from the 3400 line. We'll just make it optic and throw it in the 3900 line. They did that with a whole bunch of stuff. The barrel tumblers, these are originally 3400 barrel tumblers, non-optic. Make them optic, put in the 3900 later on. They did that with jugs, all kinds of stuff. Okay, we got through that. Got to mention this because I had to bring a small. Faber vase, very, very rare. Etched Elaine. Talked about that. I like this. This is a kind of a difficult, really tough piece. I guess it looks like it could be a soap dish, but Cambridge listed it as an ashtray. Yeah, it's a perfect soap dish. It's got that little, raised things there in the bottom. But that's what they listed it at. And this is just something we like too because it was In the 3500 line, there was a bunch of comports, and this just happens to be one that has what we call the muddler twist stem. It actually has a number to it too, but that's pretty neat. It's gold encrusted. And that is about it. I think we've done everything. Did I miss anything? Oh, yeah. Well, the rum pot. Yeah. This is 34 in the 3400 line. It has spikes coming up and the correct stopper. Somebody's always giving me a hard time whether it's a correct stopper or not. But this is a really rare piece that, but it's just, I like to say the word rum pot, so that's why I brought it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Okay, the question was, in the case where a piece has two patterns on them, does that make them much more valuable, more desirable, etc.? The only two pieces that in Elaine that we're aware of, again, is this relish that either is the 4-part or the 3-part. And it only shows up when they're gold encrusted, because we have these in crystal, and when they're in crystal, they're all Elaine. You don't have the chintz on the bottom and the Elaine on the sides. They only did it on the gold encrusted pieces. Now, to answer that question, it's really no. It's just kind of a quirk. In the case of Elaine, anyway, it's not. It's just kind of a quirky thing they did on this particular piece. So, and it's not. Those are the only two things that I know of that they did it. Why they did it, I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing, though. But yes, sir.
I was going to say, you're all welcome to come to our house and see the rest of the collection.
Yes, we do. We have everything that we own, we have displayed. And so we have, well, you count them? 9 big display cases of Elaine. And all different. And all onesies, which some people find funny. That we just have onesies, because we don't have 4 of this or 2 of that. But there's a couple exceptions. I think we have like 4 barrel tumblers and some of them. And I haven't answered the question because I really don't know. We don't know what the answer is, really. I couldn't even estimate, really. Maybe, no. Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to venture a guess. It's a lot. Yes, I do. Excel spreadsheet. Any other questions? Yes, sir. How long have we been buying, Elaine? You want to tell that story?
I think a lot of you probably have heard this story, so I'll try to make it quick. My parents actually moved out of their house about this time 10 years ago, in 2004. And as they were downsizing, we were pulling things out of the attic, which I'm sure happens with a lot of, that's how a lot of glass is found. My father actually cut for the company, but just for a few years. So there was always glass around. And so we found some boxes in the attic, and my sisters-in-law and I kind of split them up, but we didn't know what we were picking or anything. So we go home, and I tell Jack, I'm going to go Google this Cambridge glass, So it took me about 5 minutes to realize there's an Elaine pattern.
She came bounding up the stairs. There's an Elaine pattern. There's an Elaine pattern. I'm going, oh, yeah.
And out of my parents' collection, there was one Elaine saucer, and that was it.
That was 2004. So we've been collecting. Yeah, I don't know. What other questions? Anything else? No. Well, that's predominantly the only etch. We collect other things. There's some at Cambridge has got so much great stuff. It's just, we like to collect Rabina and bitters bottles and weird things, and candelabras. So, we are. You did. No wonder you wouldn't tell me this. Oh, green nudes. Yeah, I like green nudes.
My father cut Croesus and Lucia, so we collect that.
We like the cuttings too. They just cuttings are just so. Some of you haven't been exposed to the cuttings that Cambridge did. It's just phenomenal. And the difference between etching and cutting is the difference between a process and true artwork. Because etching was just literally a process. I mean, step by step by step by step. Cutting, you had the artist sitting there at his bench, freehand cutting every single piece that was done. And all they had was a little piece of paper up here, and most of the time when they were experienced, they didn't even have that. And they're sitting there with, with us 3 pieces of chalk mark and stuff like that on a wherever a flower was and stuff like that. So, yes. True. I'm just talking about in the actual making of it. You're right. I mean, the artwork was in the drawing and doing the etching play. Absolutely. Yeah. I wasn't really trying to diminish that. Okay. So, anything else? Well, thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute.
I'd like to invite this gentleman to come to our house and help us count.
Oh, yeah.